And our grandson looked at it and said, is that really important enough to argue about? And I said, I guess not. And that was so perfect. He said, or bicker, he used the word bicker or argue. And I said, no, you're right. And I stepped back a little, I paused and realized that it was not important at all. And a 10-year-old had to tell me that.
Wow.
Keep reminding
It was
us.
pretty good.
Yeah.
Amazing. We learn from our children and our grandchildren.
That's for sure.
It's beautiful. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Liron, do you have anything you want to reflect on?
I forgot.
Reflecting on something in the past 2 weeks.
Either on any of the last sessions or any questions on relationships in general, just before we move on. Only if you have. No pressure.
Questions? No, I don't have any questions.
Okay. Awesome. I'll see if Karen has anything to add. Hi, Karen. Nice. L'chaim.
Didn't hear you yet.
Oh, welcome, guys. Karen and Or. Hi.
L'chaim.
L'chaim. we saw you pouring. L'chaim. Oh, we have a few of you with your l'chaims. Amazing. Karen, are you going to unmute?
She's unmuted, but I don't think
we can't hear you.
She froze.
Oh, okay. So I was wondering if Karen, oh, there you guys are. Do you guys?
I'm sorry, I swapped Denise and Eitan. They had it right last time.
Oh, yes. Welcome, Denise. So we were just saying that if anyone had any questions, first of all, on any aspect of relationships and or on any of the 3 topics that we spoke about before we kind of wrap up this evening. So Karen, do you have anything that you would want to jump in and share or ask?
I will. Why don't we get started and let me
Okay.
I literally a screaming child and now I'm sitting in front of the computer.
We understand. We get it. Okay. But I won't put anyone else on the spot. But I think it would be if necessary or needed, or if you guys have any, wanting to hash any of the topics out, please feel free to jump in and ask. Some of the things we'll share today, because the topic is powerful tools to transform your relationship. So some of the things are actually tools that we've on some level brought up over the last 3 times that we're gonna kind of, zoom in on tonight. Before that, Hanukkah is coming up in a couple days, and I wanna start off with kind of bringing up a message about Hanukkah and connecting it to our relationships. It's so profound. The thing that's so profound about Judaism is that it never gets old, because every year as we relearn it and we redo the holidays, as we get wiser and older and more mature and experience life in different ways, we can understand it based on where we're holding and what's going on in our lives, and understand it in deeper ways. And I really feel that every year with the holidays, I understand it differently. And this year with Hanukkah, one of the things I'm thinking about is how it's so funny, all these books and movies, they're always depicting there's the evil force and the good force, right? Many movies and many stories, the good against the bad. And it's so much of that in reality and in Jewish history, where it's Haman wanting to kill the Jews and Pharaoh enslaving the Jews, and the story of Hanukkah, where it was the Greeks against the Jews. And each of these biblical figures or war between someone and the Jews is also symbolic of our own inner worlds, because in our inner worlds we have the struggle, the 2 energy inside of us of pulling us into maybe negative spaces or distraction, and then our core, our soul that really wants spirituality or peace of mind or centeredness and knows what the truth is. And each of these evil figures represent something else. So the Greeks, well, who were they? What did they represent? They actually didn't want to initially, they weren't actually wanting to kill the Jews. They didn't have an issue with the Jewish people as a people. They had an issue with the spirituality and that the Jews were different. And they were like, why do you guys have your own way of doing things? And you're all like spiritual and have all these like rituals and traditions. And, you know, and the Greeks were known actually to be very, very much about external. Like they were very into beauty and fitness and sports and bodybuilding and theater. They were, you know, it was all about just like the show, you know, like the magazine life. And it bothered them that the Jews were like, it was kind of like a sore thumb for them. It's like, you're kind of like, you know, taking away the aesthetics of our Greek reality. Like you guys just do your own thing and dress your own way and have your own life. And you're more focused on like the inner world and the spirituality. And so they tried to, you know, influence them and peer pressure them to give up their inner connection and their inner growth and their desire for like emotional and spiritual growth, and to more focus on the external. And that was actually what the whole war of Hanukkah represented, even so much like symbolic of the Greeks went into the temple and they like tried to destroy the menorah and like get rid of all the oil, which represented like they were getting rid of the light and the beauty of the inner world. And we all experience that in our own life. Like we all have that Greek voice outside of us and inside of us. That's like that peer pressure of like performing and how are other people view us and what are other people doing and, you know, what do the movies say and how do the people in the magazine look, and wanting to fit in and wanting to conform and you know, fit in with society. And then we all have that like Maccabee, you know, that inner voice that's like authentic and wants to fight for our own values and have meaning and spirituality and deep connection. So, but we have those two forces inside of us. And again, all our Jewish holidays are all the celebration of like those two energies and those two forces, and then fighting for ultimately what we really believe in. So I guess what I want to say is like, to connect Hanukkah to what, as we go into like marriage tools, that a lot of the tools that really help make a marriage really meaningful and lasting and authentic and beautiful in the way we want it is by fighting against the forces of like the Greeks, with the Greek voice within us of like, you know, what is that stereotypical marriage and the expectations and you know, evaluating ourselves based on other couples, or, you know, measuring love based on external looks or, you know, money or external things, and really trying to shed that and building on that, the light within. It's like on our own soul, on the soul, and nurturing our own soul, nurturing the soul of our spouse and connecting on that soul level. And just one more thing about Hanukkah is that when the war was over and the Jews miraculously won and they went back into the temple and they were like, you know, cleaning everything up, right? The story goes that they couldn't find that pure olive oil to light the menorah, and they were searching and searching and digging and digging and digging, like we have to find an oil, we have to light the menorah. And then eventually they found, you know, as we know, 1 jar of oil, and it lasted miraculously for 8 days. And this represents like anything that we really want in life that's really going to be long lasting and that's really going to be meaningful and true and essence and fill us up in a deep way. We're going to have to dig for it. We're going to have to search for it. We're going to have to, it doesn't, like, they didn't just find the oil right away. They had to really search for it. And that represents, it's like, you want that soul connection and you want to bring out the best in each other, you have to work for it. So that's just my introduction, and all the tools we're going to share are that kind of thing. It's like, you know, it's not like 1, 2, 3 easy fix, and we're not going to give things that you could read in like a Vogue magazine. They're all things that take commitment and work and dedication, but the results come through for sure.
So I'll kick it off with beginning to give some tips, but I'm actually going to contradict a little bit of what Nechama just said at the end, is that not all of these tips are going to be taking work, but some of them are really sorry, everything takes work, but some of them take work to change and some of them take work to just accept. And so I'm going to focus first on, one thing is to accept and to realize that there's, I think it's 7 billion people in the world, something like that. So let's say 1 billion of them are married. I think there's more than that, maybe 2 or 3 billion, but, let's say 1 billion of the people are married. You're just one relationship in a billion relationships. And within a billion relationships, there are going to be differences. And one needs to start with being nice to themselves and accepting and saying, my relationship is just my relationship. Your relationship is your relationship. Everyone else has their relationship. And we need to start off with just accepting that whatever is going on here is normal. It may not be the normal that you have become led to believe. It may be it may not be the normal in the movies where things are always great or really bad. But it's normal. And if
normal.
It's your normal. And if we start with accepting that there's our normal, then we're nice to ourselves and we're really nice to each other. And we're able to begin a relationship and say, okay, this is fine. And now we move forward. And this is not only for marriage, but this applies to really across the board in our lives. But if we start with looking at our spouse and looking at ourselves and saying, I'm nice to myself, I'm nice to my spouse because our relationship is normal, that's a first way to kick off and just start moving, the first tip that I would give.
Yeah, no, I'm just also thinking about that. It's like the same thing with accepting ourselves. We could always compare and be like, this person is so much smarter and this person has so much more energy than me and this person has, so much more capable or whatever. But like we could look at marriages and some couples, maybe they connect, they have a great sense of humor and they're always laughing, or some husbands help more at home than others, and some, like everyone has different strengths and we connect in different ways. So it's like, this is the way that we connect. And this is the way that we found a way to bond and enjoy each other. And it doesn't matter. There is no rules, and trying to find a connection based on another couple that it looks good, it's not going to be authentic. So.
I remember as a kid, I used to look at my parents, and I think my parents have a bit of an awkward relationship. As kids look at their parents. And I remember whenever my parents would do certain things, I'd be like, oh my gosh, you're so embarrassing. You're so embarrassing. You're so embarrassing. How could you do this? You're destroying my life by you guys just being quirky. And as an adult and, doing that same thing to my kids are, looking at me and they're like, you guys are so weird. But realizing that this is our relationship and that's fine. And embracing that and celebrating that.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. I'm going to say in that line, we've been talking a lot about this, but there's a concept in Judaism. It's like one of the standing foundational principles of Judaism, v'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, love your fellow like yourself. And it's really so, why is it so, it's interesting because you would think it would say like, love others unconditionally, but it says love others like yourself. And the answer is because we really can't love other people until we learn to love ourselves. And we can only treat someone else as we treat ourselves. And if we're judging our spouse and we're critical and we're frustrated at them, is because we're critical and judgmental of ourselves. And if we can't love them unconditionally, it's because we don't love ourselves unconditionally. And if we can't accept their quirks or their way of doing things, it's because we don't accept that in ourselves. And so as much as we might try to change it, it's impossible if we don't do it with ourselves. So what I would say is like, it feels like counterintuitive, because when we want something or we want to change something, whether it's like, we want to be a certain parent or we want to be a certain spouse or we want to be a certain kind of friend, and we think like, we just have to do it, and we have to like externally make it happen. And it could feel like almost like a waste of time, like all this internal work of like listening to ourselves and learning to love ourselves and being kind to ourselves and not shaming ourselves, and accepting all our humanness. It takes a lot of work, and it's a lot of internal practice, and it takes a lot of stillness. And in a fast-paced world, it seems counterintuitive, like who has time for that? But what I've experienced is that the more and more I allowed myself to spend time noticing the things that I'm shaming myself about or putting myself down, or we are our worst critics and our worst enemies inside of us. And healing that and learning to switch that to love and acceptance, automatically it was this ripple effect that I was able to use those kind and loving and positive words and acceptance of myself. And automatically I was able to do that for Ezzy and for my kids. So that's the first tool. Like if you are noticing that you don't always like the way you communicate, or that you're judgmental, or you're critical, it's a mirror to the fact that you probably are talking that same way to yourself. And start noticing that and catching yourself and being like, you know what? I cannot, if I'm my worst enemy or my worst critic, like there's no hope. I can never escape from myself, So the best key to freedom is to be like adamant about switching that and be like, I have to be my best cheerleader. I have to be my number one cheerleader, my number one best friend, my number one loving parent, and constantly find things that you're doing right. Constantly be like, tell yourself, let's say you didn't handle something right. It's like you did the best you can, and you were brave, and you tried, and you're acknowledging it, and you're gonna try better next time. Good for you. Like there's always things that we're doing right, and it really, like everything else falls into place. So it's really, really important that we're our own loving parent.
Okay, so it's funny because as I'm going to say this, I remember about my relationship with my sister. There's relationships that are fire and fire, where both the couple, both the husband and the wife are very heated, emotional, loud, energetic type of people. There are relationships that are fire and water, where one is more passionate and one is more passive. And then there's relationships where there's water and water, where they're both kind of calm, soft, easygoing types of people. And I was laughing because my sister and her husband are both kind of calmer and are both calmer, not very loud, not very wild type of people. And the whole time from when they met each other till they got, till they got engaged, they got married. They were married maybe 6 months, whatever it was. And one day my sister, I don't remember if she was telling another one of my sisters or somebody, but she was saying, she's like, oh my gosh, I'm getting divorced. We had an argument. And, it was like her first argument that she ever had. Now I know Nechama and I, we had arguments while we were engaged, before we even got married, we had our arguments. And for that, I'm out, and realizing that there's a whole bunch of types of relationships. There's the fire and fire is going to argue a lot, but it brings out more passion and more excitement in the relationship. And the water and water is going to be more passive, and that's okay. It's just it's going to take more energy to bring out the deeper sides of your spouse. And you may not argue as much, but you may be holding in things that that may cause you to be more resentful to the other person. So it's always important to remember that there's that again, every relationship has its characteristics, and that arguing or not arguing is normal. And I would say most relationships, if not all relationships, do have their element of arguments. And then the next piece I was going to say is that it's okay to argue. People think like, oh my gosh, it's a terrible thing. I can't believe we're arguing and we're fighting. And it's okay. It's normal. You're two different people that have come together and are trying to bond into one. The only thing is when we argue, it's a question of how do we argue? do we argue by, by calling names, by throwing things, by putting the other person down? Oh, you've always been this annoying person who blah 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 blah. From the day I met you, you always did such and such. Or are we saying, listen, what's going on is really frustrating for me. I need to take a break. I need to step outside. I need to have a little bit of a breather, or maybe you need to have a little bit of a breather. But that is normal. Another thing, and I listened to a whole talk about this on the radio. I was once flipping through the channels and I came across this discussion. I don't remember which celebrity it was. It was some celebrity talking about arguing in front of their kids. And I didn't agree with everything that they said, but one thing that I agreed with is it's okay for your kids to see you argue too, as long as it's done in a respectful way. Your kids will see that there's conflict resolution. We're human beings. We need to resolve things, and they're going to learn from you how to interact with other people. And so as we argue, we should argue with respect and argue with proper boundaries.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's a good thing to think about. Like, how would we want to argue in a way that we're teaching our kids how to argue? That's a big responsibility for us. But I think, as you mentioned this in passing, that, a big way to argue is to say I messages. This is how I feel. Like, never say never, and never say always. It's the worst. You always this. You've always done this. That's like definitely no word in the marriage language dictionary. But also, for sure, I messages, like, we have to really, if we feel compelled to start blaming and calling the other person names, it means that we're absolutely not ready to communicate yet. That's not arguing. That's like, I don't know the word, but like gaslighting, where it's like, I'm so angry and I just want to like, but arguing healthily is like, what am I feeling and what do I need and how do I express myself so that my spouse can see my heart, so I can move forward and I could trust again and I could open up, and so there's no walls up. So yes. Okay. One of the things I spoke about, I think it was the first class, and I want to go into more detail because I think it's really important, where I spoke about, it's connected to this, that if we're really triggered by our spouse and, fuming mad, really angry, like our body is just like, when you could be like annoyed and you argue, or you could be like triggered. It's a different level. Triggered is when your body goes into like fight or flight mode. It's like bringing old trauma, you're in pain and you're feeling like so overwhelmed. It's so important, so important not to communicate from that place, because we have no clue what's ours and what's current and what's bringing up childhood stuff or past stuff, that like we're like a little child trying to like, get a job in an adult world. When we communicate, when we're triggered, we revert to little children, and it's never, ever, ever going to bring us to anything worthwhile. It just doesn't. And so I want to talk more about what would that look like? So if you notice your body just either shutting down, sweating, like you just feel so anxious, triggered. Your body's shutting down. It's a sign that there's something coming up from your past, and it's actually coming up to be healed. Because this is how it works, that our body, as children, we go through different traumatic things. And it doesn't mean that you had an abusive childhood and your parents beat you and, life was terrible, but we all have trauma. Even small things could traumatize us. Like, our parents gave us all attention and then they had a younger sibling and then they were busier and we felt like, less seen by them or whatever, all kinds of things happen that as a child, we create in our memory, in our body's memory, that like we were pushed away or we weren't loved unconditionally, or, we can't trust certain things. And then when that is brought up again in our adult life, it literally puts us back into a childhood, like replay of a childhood memory. And I want to explain that this happened. This is like God's way of actually helping us heal, because it feels like a punishment. It feels terrible when we're triggered, and I hate being triggered, and I do not, it doesn't feel good. But it really helped me when I realized, like, first of all, I'm not asking myself to be triggered. Like, this is my body reacting. This is not my brain. It's not like I'm going to go get triggered now. My body had a reaction. I can't control it. And then, so what I was saying is that our body stores it, and actually it's locked inside, like as if we're carrying rocks inside of our body until it's released. And the only way to release it is to re-trigger it, open up that wound, like re-experience it, and then let it go, and like reparent ourselves as if we're in that situation again, and like intellectually give ourselves what we needed then. And then it's like those rocks get released from our heart, and we actually can switch our reactions and become free from old behaviors. So this is like, it's a lot. So I'm going to give an example, and then I want to pause and ask if any of you guys have questions or want me to explain this a little more. But this is what I found that really, really helps me. So I'm going to give you a few tips. So if I'm triggered, I go to a quiet place, a calm place, like either my backyard or my bedroom. Like, I have to be by myself, and I just breathe. And I breathe, and I do not allow my brain to take over, because my brain hijacks and my brain is actually, in those moments, it's trying to get me to escape from my body, and it doesn't help. It's just a distraction. It's like trying to get me in denial. So breathing into my body and allowing myself, instead of breathing out and trying to get out of my body, going the opposite and allowing myself to go into my body, like breathing in and to be like, what am I feeling? Like, why is this so extreme for me? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. People could say, I can't believe you're making such a big deal. This is so not a big deal. You're an adult. You shouldn't, you couldn't, you wouldn't. It does not matter. If your body is having a strong reaction, it's meant to have a strong reaction. There's something to learn. There's something to be released. So I ask myself, what am I feeling? And I go really quiet. I mean, sometimes I even put on like meditation music or music. There's like on YouTube, like there's meditation to help you connect to your inner child, healing music, all kinds of things like that. And I really go quiet as long as I need. Sometimes I journal, or sometimes I just breathe and listen to this music, and I ask myself, like, what is this reminding me of? Like, how old am I? Like, what is my body telling me? What am I feeling? What am I experiencing? Because it's essentially, it's in like an out of body, out of adult experience. And my body tells me and communicates to me. And sometimes like it's feeling all the shame, or I can't trust, or like I'm scared something bad's going to happen, or all these kind of messages that's from my body. And then I can reparent it and tell myself, like, those things are not true. And I am worthy, and and it will be okay. And as if I'm talking to a little child. And once all that work is done, it's amazing, because sometimes after that, like I could go to Ezzy and communicate something that I need or whatever, but like 90% of it was just for me to heal. And it was like, all meant to be. So I want to pause here and give an opportunity to reflect on that. Any comments, or was that like crystal clear? You guys are all ready to do it tomorrow? Amazing. We'll check in a couple weeks, see how that's going for you guys. Look, I know for me, it was like learning a new language. It's like learning to drive a car, or learning whatever. It's like learning how to communicate with your triggers and with your body. It's not a 1, 2, 3 learning, but I just wanted to, I don't expect for you, some of you guys, if you've never built this kind of communication with your triggers or your inner world, it might be something abstract, but I wanted to just put it out there that there is a concept like this. And we could always talk about it more after the class, or Okay.
So the next thing I'll jump into is physical intimacy.
Oh, Danae has a
no,
question.
we're just about to get to the good stuff, but go ahead.
Hey, so I'm curious, how, temporally related your work needs to be with yourself, because, life is kind of, I don't know, busy. And so, this idea of going out, like something happens, you get triggered, and then, go outside and you, I don't know, like listen to some calming music or meditation or journal, like, what if the rest of your house is, like, I don't know, 4-letter word that starts with SH and then show, like what happens in that case when like, so I'm just curious, how important is it that like you need to do it right then, or can you just kind of table it because you've got, wild children and, blah, 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 and then come back to it and do it later?
So as you said, can I comment first? And I said no, but because I don't know, he probably has a different answer, but I'm going to say what I'll say. And then you could say your perspective on this. For me, it's all about like being honest with myself. Like if I'm so triggered that if a kid asks me for anything or like spills their orange juice on the floor or whatever, then I'm going to absolutely snap and go crazy and let it out at them. Like, what is the best of the two evils? Like going and locking myself in the room and them, jumping off the walls for a half an hour and beating themselves up and not getting, gaslighted by me and like attacking them for being kids and being innocent just because I am so triggered. Or if I know myself and I say I'm so triggered, but like this has nothing to do with my kids, and I know I'm gonna work it through later. I'm gonna, like, as soon as the kids are asleep, I'm gonna dedicate my time and I can table this. I feel it, but I can intellectualize this and I'm fine, then great, then you could wait. But for me, I always ask myself that, I'm like, if I notice that like I will yell at my kids, and my kids do not deserve to be yelled at. So it's better that they don't have a mother for a half an hour. They will survive than have a mother who's, acting like a witch and making them feel like that they're horrible when it has nothing to do with them. That's my.
So I was going to say pretty much the same thing, but I was going to add in, one component is, or two pieces is one, if the thing is going to, if responding to your kid at that moment and you're frazzled and you're falling apart and you're just super overwhelmed, then what's going to happen is you're going to be destroying your kids. If you say, you know what, guys, as long as they're not in a situation that they're going to run into the street and God forbid, but if the house is safe, your kids will remember, hey, mom just took a 10-minute break every night. And, if it is every night, she took a 10-minute break every night, but she was great. She was pleasant. But if every night you don't take those 10 minutes, then you have this concept of you're continuously stressed out and continuously fighting and screaming, and it doesn't help much. The other thing I was going to say is, when Nechama said that I'll wait till the kids go to bed and then I'll deal with it. There have been nights where Nechama's working, processing something, and she's like, you know what? I just need this night to myself. And in the beginning, it was like, wait, okay, fine. So work out your thing for 10 minutes and then, and then come and be present. But as she worked out these things, I looked at it and I began to see that this is part of a bigger picture, and the bigger picture of working through these things ends up helping our relationship be stronger. So taking the time, even as long as you're not just dumping your spouse out, out the window, but you're communicating, you're saying, hey, you know what, I'm going to need some time. And it may be, once a month, it may be once a week, it may be once a day, and you're giving each other that space to process. It's helpful and beneficial in the long run.
Yeah. And now I have to add two things to that. I agree. What I will say is that when I started realizing that I have permission to communicate to my family that I'm going through a hard time, and even like, I think it was the end of last week, like I was just having a hard day and I knew that I had to process some feelings, and I was busy the whole day. I didn't have a chance. And I mean, if I'm going to go a whole day and I'm busy and I have something that's really upsetting me, and then I just busy all night and then I crash, I probably won't sleep well, number one. Number two, tomorrow's going to be busy too. So when in the world am I going to take care of it? So to me, it's like, I'm actually able to regulate my emotions so much more and get through the day and stay loving when I know that at a certain point, let's say when the younger kids are in bed and it's only the older kids around, like as he said, like I'll communicate, I'm like, I need the time off. I'll go in the bath and like light a candle and just sit there and be like, what am I feeling? Like the whole day is better because I know I love myself enough that I am going to give myself permission that is so important. I would, if God forbid my kid was sick, like I would reschedule things and I would sit on the bed and, rub my baby's tummy and like, it wasn't in the schedule, but life happens. So if I'm having like emotional pain, it's the same thing. It's like, it needs attention. Like when it doesn't go away, it needs to be released. It goes away if we shove it, it doesn't go away. It just comes out in passive aggression or anxiety or stress or, that's number one. Number two, I think it is such good example for our kids to show them and to say, and I tell them, I'm so honest with them. And it was a long journey. I used to be a martyr and never, ever took breaks and never thought for a second and never walked away from my kids. I have to be the perfect mom. And as a result, it wasn't good for me or for them. I think it's so healthy that I tell them, I'm like, something's really, really bothering me. I'm just feeling really sad. And I don't want to like let it out of you or whatever. And I'm going to just take like 15 minutes, go in my room to feel better so that I could come out and feel happier. Like, I need to take some time. Like, it's a gift to them. Wouldn't we want our children to acknowledge their emotions and to say, I need a break, and to step away and to acknowledge and to be authentic in their relationships? Like, they learn these things from us. So not only do I think it's less to walk away, I actually think it's more, because I think we're gifting our children healthy ability to learn to nurture themselves when they're feeling upset, and it's giving them tools for life.
Yeah. Okay. The next thing I'll mention is about physical intimacy. For many people, they see physical intimacy as a must. And yes, it's a must in a marriage as a whole. But in order to have quality physical intimacy, there first needs to be emotional intimacy. And emotional intimacy, I'm not very accustomed to talking about this subject, so trying to think of the best way to explain it is one can just jump into physical intimacy, say, okay, it's the end of a hard day, let's just have our fun time and do our thing. That's not what physical intimacy is really all about. Yes, it's enjoyable, but it's not a true relationship. Physical intimacy is the expression of a healthy emotional intimacy. It should be the expression of a healthy emotional intimacy. Emotional intimacy is a must. Physical intimacy is more of an expression of the healthy emotional intimacy. And as we build that strength in our emotional intimacy, naturally the physical intimacy will express itself. Part one. Part two is physical intimacy doesn't need to be described based on, again, this goes back to the concept of physical intimacy doesn't need to be what it is in the movies. We see these hot, passionate, steamy experiences and everybody's having a great time, and you're like, something's wrong with me, or something's wrong with her. We're not regular people, and the reality is that's just the movies. And you may be one of those couples that have that, and that's great. But realizing that the truest intimacy is when you are one first emotionally, mentally, and then that leads into a physical intimacy, which is the truest expression of your oneness. What do you want to add?
Yes, I will add something. I keep saying that. No, I think that it's just really good to know, like, for permission. I think that physical intimacy has that element of that passion when all the guilt and the coulds and the shoulds go away, because it's like anything that we do out of expectations or guilt, or we could or we should, or then it puts like rules around it, and it puts an expectation, and then it could take away from the passion. And so the same way, it's like, let's say you have a friend and you call her or him, you call your friend when you're feeling it. I feel compelled. I miss my friend. I want to talk. But if it's like, I really should check off this box and call this friend because I feel guilty, it's actually not going to feel very good, that conversation. It's like, listen to your soul. So I think this is the same thing with physical intimacy. It's like, keep building the emotional intimacy and do what's natural. You want to cuddle, you want to give each other a hug and move on. You want more, let it just be authentic and communicate and express your needs. And maybe one of you want more and the other one wants less. Communicate and just be open and drop the rules.
I want to add to that something is there's different things that the Torah refers to when it comes to a relationship. And one of the things that in the ketubah, in the marriage document, that it includes there is that the man is obligated to provide to his wife a food, shelter, and intimacy. Now, the way the word in Hebrew is written is onata, her pleasure or her intimacy. And the question is, why is it her intimacy? It's their intimacy. And the reason that's given, which I think is very applicable in this course, is that when it comes to intimacy, and this is really more talking to the men, it's his obligation to be there for her in this intimate relationship. It's all about how can I give her pleasure, and how can I be there for her? Yes, you will be enjoying that experience as well. But if you're in that experience for what I can get out of it, then it's an experience of taking, that you're taking from this experience. But if it's an experience of giving to her, then she feels, wait, I can now be a receiver from this relationship, and as a result, you will enjoy the experience more. And it's something that's a bit of a shift in the mindset. Society tells us, no, it's equal, and everybody, and yes, it's equal but different. And it's equal in the sense that you're both supposed to be active partners in this experience. What's different is and sometimes we don't even take the time to integrate this. But if we put aside what we're getting out of this experience, but we're there as a giver, and as a result, she's the receiver. Sorry, we have a young one here, so I'm going to change the and she's the receiver. Then he's giving, she's receiving, she's taking this in a positive way, and then at the end he ends up feeling even better and more happy as a result of the whole experience.
Okay, let's see what we have time for. Okay, this is just a small thing, but really big in terms of helping the relationship. Listen to your spouse as if they're a stranger. I know that's unfortunate, but it's something that really helped me in my process, because if some stranger comes to my house, or not even a stranger, like an acquaintance, a friendly friend, sibling, actually anyone, it's like, even if whatever they talk about, even if I'm tired, I'm gonna listen. It's natural. It's like, I want to make them feel good. I want to make them feel welcomed. I want to make them feel seen. It draws that out in us. But somehow with our own spouse, it's like, I'll get to you later, after the kids, after I check my phone, after I shower, after I clean up the house, somehow there's like these demons inside of us that comes up with all kinds of excuses. And I really feel that it's more than in our control. It's like almost, it's like the same way we have this, like the Yetzer Hara, right? This like evil inside of us that's like, don't listen to your soul and don't do good things. And like, it like pulls us away from what we really want. What we really want is the emotional intimacy with our spouse and have meaningful conversations and to be a good listener and to have that connection. But there's like this demon force inside of us that's like somehow wants to put all the other relationships first to cause separation. It's not just that there's something wrong with us. It's because when two people come together and two halves of a soul and push through and build this oneness, there's God can rest between you two. It's powerful and you really bring out the best in each other. So there's a demon force that tries to pull you guys away. It's really, I feel like it's really important to know that and acknowledge that. And when I started realizing that, like somehow it's really easy for me to be a compassionate listener to other people, but it was really hard for me. Like somehow I always felt like I would, but I always had excuses, and the excuses always seemed really logical, you know? But really pushing that through and to be like, at the end of the day, you know, at the end of the day, what all that matters really, like the relationship that most matters to me is my marriage and the person that I need the most and the person that I love the most. And, you know, and I felt like when we're disconnected, it didn't matter how many friends I have and sisters I have and all these things, I feel so empty and so down and so bad. Like it takes over my whole life when we're in a negative place and we're not connecting well. So it's just something that I had to work on a lot and to realize that it's an investment. And like, you know, someone showed up to my door, I would stop and I would acknowledge, then I could do that for him. And I felt like I experienced the ripple effect because, you know, by me listening and being there, I feel like and then it ended up opening the door for more, you know, I think as he felt more seen and really was able to, I got back in return. It ends up flowing for both of you, even though that's not a good enough reason to do it, but you get the benefits. Yeah, wait, I think there was like one more thing. Oh, this is also, again, and I could just imagine like, Denise, your comments about this. I'm gonna say that we can't do this every single day, but it's something that like, I try, maybe I do good once a month, you know, but it's something to be aware of that if we were going, I mean, in this reality, I mean, COVID again changed this, but like, I was going to say, not like we haven't been doing that, but like, if you were going on to a business meeting or an interview, or you were, you know, you had an event, you would do what you needed to get ready, you know, maybe you would rest or you would prepare or you would, you know, carve out that time. And it's the same thing, like, again, whenever we can't do this every day, but to acknowledge that like spending the evening together with our family it's an event. It's like we're investing love, we're investing in the connection in the relationship. So if we're so exhausted and we feel so frazzled and there's nothing left at the end of the day, of course we're not going to have anything at the end of the day. So it's like carve out that time, like maybe take a 10-minute nap, or, you know, do something to uplift yourself. Or I know for me, one big thing that changed, it was like I pushed myself all day, and then I was like, I had zero, negative actually 50 to give to my family, and I was noticing that, and there was a big shift in me when I realized that essentially I have work all day from the second I wake up till the second I go to sleep, because it's either my kids or I'm working or whatever. So I try to take even like a half an hour nap in the middle of the day, because I'm like, anyone who's working 24/7 would have to have a break. And even having a half an hour, like eating lunch and taking a half an hour nap, it really, really changed my day and gives me much more energy to be more present in the evening. Okay. Fine. Where the hour passed by fast. Do you guys have any comments on any of this? No.
Silence is deafening.
Okay.
Should we go on to
Yeah.
entertainment?
Okay. Well, before we say that, I really hope you guys really benefited from this and enjoyed it and got out of it what you were hoping. And, you know, inner growth and working on relationships is a 24/7 full till the day we die. It never ends. So, you know, it's something that we have to always keep working on. And the same way we have to water our plants, if we want our plants to grow, we have to water our relationships. And hopefully these tools and tips are things that, you know, you could take into your day-to-day life and really see the fruits of the labor, because it's very well worth it.
So Nahum and I were thinking about continuing this couple series, but you know, obviously not going to be on marriage necessarily. And before I share with the ideas that we've had, first of all, would you guys be interested in continuing with another series, and what topics may be of interest to you guys?
Hmm?
I would be interested in continuing. And it doesn't have to necessarily be about marriage. I mean, just how we are in any relationship, whether it's with our adult family members or friends. But specifically, I'd like to discuss the topic of how to be in relationship, but not waver on your own values and needs, so to speak.
How to stay true to yourself within a relationship.
That's very good.
Yeah, because any relationship can really test that aspect in us. And sometimes we bend a little more than other times, or we bend on our values and then realize that we've done that and then regret it, or at least that happens to me. So that would be something that would interest me.
Yeah. It's like having healthy interdependence instead of codependency, and really know who each other are and appreciate each other's differences, and, you know, not lose that who you are.
Yeah.
That's a big one. That's very good.
Especially, like you said, interdependence. Like when somebody needs you or needs something from you. I don't mean I mean like on an intimate or soulful level, relationship level, not like a materialistic thing.
Yeah.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, what else do you want to say?
So I mean, I'll share what some of the ideas that we had was, if you're familiar with Brene Brown, you know, she has a whole bunch of different writings, but you know, some of the topics that we're thinking of covering in this next thing is, and I'm just going to read from the notes here: self-love, the compassionate voice of growth, managing stress and anxiety, courage, compassion, and connection. So I'll read.
We ended up coming up with 3.
Oh, yeah, we finalized on 3?
I think so.
Okay, so but these are the general concepts that we're thinking of focusing the next course on.
But I think maybe also talking about like interdependence versus codependence. That's a very powerful topic, very important. I like that. So maybe we could add to that.
Karen, you wanted to say something?
Just that I felt like what Liron brought up and what you're doing in the spring series, just from the little bit that I'm going through with the material that you guys shared with me, I think it can be tied in very easily. And I think it's super interesting for all of us. I would be really interested in having that incorporated in it, because I think it all goes together, especially with your the topics that you already brought up for the spring, and that would be so interesting.
Yeah.
Another question that came up, we were having a staff meeting, and this is something I would enjoy, but I'd love to hear from you guys. How many of you guys would enjoy doing right now it would be interesting, a virtual paint night with wine. We're basically, we would deliver to you guys the painting materials and the canvas, and it would be around relationships, but I think it could be a fun way for couples to connect, do a paint night and discuss. So it would be more of a social paint night. You know, we'd have somebody teaching the concept. It would be some sort of Jewish art. I think somebody did a thumbs up on their screen before. So if you're interested, do a thumbs up. If you're not interested in something like that, do a thumbs down.
Or unsure, depending.
There's
Okay.
no thumbs down on the screen.
Does it matter if you don't know how to paint at all? I could draw a stick figure, but that's like the extent.
Me
of what
too.
I
by
will
the
tell
way.
you, I
I'm very
have
intimidated by it too.
no clue how to paint. Nahama and I went to a paint night a couple years ago, and somehow we actually have those paintings hanging up in our house side by side, and they're actually enjoyable to look at, even though it's something that I totally would never have ever thought I can do.
Yeah, they
Well,
take
the
you
wine
through a
will
baby
help.
step.
The wine will help.
Yes,
exactly. It'll be abstract art that way.
Well, we were just thinking maybe it's nice to do, come back together in a more social, social way, something fun. But we'll see. Okay,
All righty.
unless anyone has anything to share or ask.
Any last things before we say goodbye?
Well, I have nothing to share except I'm so impressed how the time, despite how busy you guys are, all the time you put into preparing this and how authentic and articulate you were.
We did it 52 years ago.
Yeah, right. You guys did a great job of preparing and being very
It's
thoughtful.
wonderful.
Yes, very
Thank you.
excellent.
Impressed. It's
Very
lovely.
impressive. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
It helps with the crowd, and it helps makes it even better.
Yes. We got more excited each time because we love you guys. It's been really fun. All right.
Thank you
L'chaim.
so much. Keep us posted.
Yep.
Will
Take
do.
care. Everybody have a happy
Happy
Hanukkah.
Yes.
Happy Hanukkah, yes.
Happy
We love it,
Hanukkah. And we should all the whole message, like they relit the menorah, right? And they fought against darkness and pushed through and prevailed, and lightness won. So it's like whatever darkness or negativity or demons that are pulling us away from each other or creating negativity or toxic connection or negative communication, we should be able to fight through and push through to really connect to our inner light inside of us and be able to communicate in loving way and beautiful ways and harmonious ways that really bring out the light in each other, and that our home should be like a temple where it's an oasis of safety and security and peace and an oasis away from the chaotic world. Our home should be a safety place. So blessing that we should all be able to experience that.
And Chuck, you mentioned Hanukkah. Next week, Wednesday, we're doing a Zoom Hanukkah menorah lighting. Generally, we have one downtown Los Altos. Obviously, that's not going to happen in person this year. But we're going to have, for the younger kids, we're going to have an olive oil demonstration. We'll light the menorah together, each individually in their own homes. And then we'll have music with Isaac Zones. And it'll be a fun evening. So if you want to, if you want the link for that, sign up at jewishlosaltos.com/Zoom Hanukkah. And Hanukkah could be spelled many ways. So if you get it wrong the first time, try it again. All righty.
Bye, guys. Thanks so much.
Take care, everybody.
Good night, everyone.
Hi, good night. Thank you very much.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thank
Finish
you.
that wine off, guys.
Yeah.
Take care.